Hello everyone, today we are going to compare Jehovah's Witnesses with three different syndromes: the Dunning Kruger effect, the Perceptual Expectation, also called the Perceptual Expectancy, and the Stockholm Syndrome. I'm going to first explain to you each one of them, and then we'll compare those with Jehovah's Witnesses, and we'll see if they suffer from such syndrome. So without further ado, let's go. What's the Dunning Kruger effect? Well, according to studies, intelligent people tend to think less of themselves. They tend to think they are not so intelligent, while not so intelligent people tend to think the opposite. They tend to think that they are way more intelligent than they are. So how does that apply to Jehovah's Witnesses? First of all, I would like to say that for once, not having been born and raised a Jehovah's Witness, I can even tell you better what I am about to tell you. Because I have known both what it is not to be a witness for a good chunk of my life, and being one since I became one as an adult. For one thing, and those are kind of two opposite things, but for one thing, the individual Jehovah's Witness does not think of himself very highly. As a matter of fact, there is no self. The self of the person, the Jehovah's Witness, does not exist because they are not allowed to think what they want to think. They are not allowed to wear what they want to wear. They are not allowed to look the way they want to look. They are not allowed to do whatever they want to do. And they are not allowed to feel even the way they want to feel. So when you're not allowed to be yourself, think what you want to think, feel the way you want to feel, be who you want to be, well, yourself does not exist anymore. And the reason why I was saying that I can speak even better in this instance, not having been born and raised as a Jehovah's Witness, is that I felt that. I felt that as a Jehovah's Witness, that myself, my person, my personality had disappeared. Not 100% because I have a strong personality, but a good chunk of it had disappeared. So yes, I felt that. I felt myself go as a Jehovah's Witness. So the self as a person does not exist in the Jehovah's Witness. On the opposite though, on the other hand, they are very arrogant as people. To give you an example, you probably know Bridget AZ channel, Christine, that's her name. This lady has never been a Jehovah's Witness, but she used to study with them a while back, and she knows more about the Watchtower than most Jehovah's Witnesses. So what she does, and that's all she does in her channel, it's call up kingdom halls all over the United States. And usually it goes like that. She'll say, hey, I was doing some telephone witnessing today. Do you have a minute? And you have the Jehovah's Witness on the other end of the line, whether it's a man or a woman, that's like, you're calling the Kingdom Hall. Like, what do you think you can tell me? I'm a Jehovah's Witness. And if you've never heard that, let's listen to a clip right now.
Hello, Jehovah's Witness.
Hi, I was just doing some phone witnessing. Do you have a minute?
Some phone witnessing?
Yeah, sharing scripture, talking about the Lord,
Yeah. Well, this is the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, awesome. I love Jehovah's Witnesses.
Actually, we were just about to head out, so maybe.
Oh, bummer. Well, can you look at this scripture later?
Sure, I'll write it down.
It's Jeremiah 23:16.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask what organization this is?
I'm just a Christian by myself. I do fellowship with other Christians, but I don't really. We don't call it an organization, anyways. But yeah,
Oh, okay. Right.
I don't report my time to anybody or anything like that. If that's what you mean.
Do you see this arrogance? Do you see how arrogant is this Jehovah's Witness? And the reason he may not be arrogant as a person, but the culture of the sect, the culture of this cult makes people arrogant like this. Because when you are a Jehovah's Witness, you think that you have all the answers of this universe. You think you know everything. So you are allowed to preach to anyone, even to a priest of their own religion, whatever. But when it's the opposite happening, when someone calls the kingdom hall to give you a witness, you know, they want to laugh at your face. And sometimes on other videos, you can hear the witness laugh. And that's how arrogant they are. So they do think way more of themselves than they should. And they're not as intelligent as they think. Again, before I was a witness, I remember I was on my way to learn more about something that was very dear to me, and then I dropped it because I became a Jehovah's Witness. And then I pursued it when I left the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I know for a fact that as a Jehovah's Witness, yes, you think you know everything, but you really know nothing. If they only knew the thing they could learn about the psyche, about spirituality, without the religion part of it, about science, about so many things that the Jehovah's Witness knows nothing about. And the reason they know nothing about it is because all they read is the Watchtower and Awake magazines. And that's a shame. So that makes them pretty ignorant. But they think way more of themselves than they should. So do they have the Dunning Kruger effect of not being realistic about who they really are, not being realistic about their own intelligence and knowledge? Yes, they do. So yes, Jehovah's Witnesses do have the Dunning Kruger effect syndrome. Second, perceptual expectation. Do Jehovah's Witnesses have this perceptual expectation or perceptual expectancy? What is perceptual expectation? Well, it's a predisposition to perceive things a certain way. In other words, it's being able to see things only through your own lenses. Do Jehovah's Witnesses have this syndrome? Well, for Jehovah's Witnesses, everything is black or white. It's us versus them. It's them versus the world. Anything that does not fit the box of thoughts and rules of Jehovah's Witnesses, it's not something acceptable to them. It's not something they will even consider. So yes, they do have perceptual expectation. A very good example is how Jehovah's Witnesses see homosexuality. Homosexuality for a Jehovah's Witness, in case you're not one, it's like a disease, okay, or a bad habit. It's something that you can heal from. They do not understand the concept of homosexuality being exactly the same as heterosexuality. When was the last time you realized, oh, I want to be heterosexual? When was the last time you decided that? Never, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, it's the same thing for homosexual. I happen to have grown up nearby a boy that was 2 years older than me, and who used to love to play with me, and I used to love that because he had a brother and I had a brother, and when we were the four of us, it was 3 boys against me, and thankfully one of the boys, well, was a little homosexual. He didn't know it. I didn't know it for sure. We didn't know it, but he was. So he liked to play with me with dolls rather than trucks and stuff like my brother and his brother. So I knew very, very early on in my life that you are born homosexual because I grew up with one, basically. And before we both knew what a homosexual was. So I have no problem knowing, believing when those ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who have left say, well, you know, hey, I'm homosexual, and I've always been, even when I was a Jehovah's Witness. I know they are. I believe them. But the Jehovah's Witness, even though there are some homosexual in the religion, they're not allowed to get to know them as who they truly are. Because remember what I said earlier, the self does not exist when you're a witness. So your homosexual you does not exist when you're a witness. Those people can only speak out when they are out of the religion. So the Jehovah's Witness, who is heterosexual, does not get to know a homosexual and get into their brain and understand what is it to be a homosexual. So they know nothing about that, but what they do is believe what they are told by their organization leaders, that it's like a disease or a bad habit, you know, something you can just get rid of, and definitely not something you were born with. So you see the perceptual expectation here? Well, the perceptual expectation is that homosexual will not inherit God's kingdom. Well, if God doesn't like homosexuals, he sure made a lot of them. And in this case, really, it's not even only Jehovah's Witnesses. It's many religions that have the same feelings about this particular case, we'll say. And that's just an example. There are others. But I thought that homosexuality was a very good example to show you how the Jehovah's Witness is not allowed to perceive things any differently than he's told to perceive it. And really, I don't care if it's a book that tells you to perceive something a certain way, or if it's a human being, it's still the same thing. It's still perceptual expectation, being able to see and understand something only through your lenses. Do Jehovah's Witnesses suffer from the Stockholm Syndrome? What's the Stockholm Syndrome? Well, this was called the Stockholm Syndrome in 1973 because of something that happened in Stockholm, Sweden, where some bank employees were held prisoners of their aggressors for 6 days. And when it came time to testify against those aggressors, the employees refused to do so because they had developed some type of bonds with their aggressors. And that became the Stockholm effect, where the aggressee is becoming almost in love sometimes, and more often has some type of attachment, bonds to their aggressors. Do Jehovah's Witnesses suffer from that? Well, they have 8 leaders, the governing body, 8 men, that are telling them, hey, by the way, we are not even inspired. Every decision we are making in this organization is not even from God. If you forgot about that February 2017 Watchtower, let's go to it. The governing body is neither inspired nor infallible. Therefore, it can err in doctrinal matters or in organizational direction. So here we have those men who have the nerves to tell in print that they're not inspired, and that basically, if Jehovah's Witnesses know how to read, if they've been long enough in school to not only read the words but understand what they read, well, they understand that it says that every decision they're making is not from God. It's from their own behind. And those same men are telling Jehovah's Witnesses, hey, by the way, if you happen to have a kid that needs a blood transfusion, well, do not allow that blood transfusion. Let your kid die, okay? He will be resurrected. Jehovah will resurrect him or her. Oh, by the way, if your kid leaves the organization or is this fellowship, do not speak to your kid again, okay? Do not take their calls. Just contact them in case of extreme emergency. Those Jehovah's Witnesses, even though they read those lines, that the governing body is not inspired by God and they make decisions based on themselves, they are going to listen, to obey that governing body, which, by the way, tells them this also in another Watchtower. Watchtower, November 15, 2013, page 20, paragraph 17. The direction that you receive from Jehovah's organization may seem strange or unusual, but all of us must be ready to obey any instructions we may receive, whether we agree with them or not, because obeying these instructions will save our lives. So you see here, the Jehovah's Witness is brainwashed to listen to those men, even if what they're saying doesn't make any sense, and even though they're not inspired. The Jehovah's Witness still will shun their kids and will let them die if they need a blood transfusion. You see, in the case of that Stockholm thing, the employees of the bank that were captive for 6 days, they had to make a choice at some point. They had to be on the side of their abusers or on the side of the law, of the court, and testify against the abusers. But they took a stand for the abusers and they refused to testify. Jehovah's Witnesses do the same thing. They could be on the side of their own kids, not to even take any other instances, taking just their own children, their own flesh and blood. They can choose not to shun their kids. They can choose to give them a blood transfusion if they need one. But they are choosing to be on the side of their abusers. Because yes, the governing body members can be completely compared to abusers and aggressors. So just like those employees, those bank employees in Stockholm, Jehovah's Witnesses take their stand and take their side, and they're on the side of the governing body. By the way, there are many different instances where people have been known to have developed that Stockholm Syndrome, and one of them, oh, how surprising, is cults. Yes, people in cults have a strong Stockholm Syndromes because it's known that people in cults take the side of their leaders or leader. It doesn't matter, by the way. You don't have to have only one leader to be in a cult. It could be one leader or more than one. Okay, in your case, it's more than one. It's 7, 8. So it is known that the person in a cult will take the side of the cult leader versus the side of their family member. In my own case, my brother is shunning me because he took his stand. He took his side. He took the side of his leaders rather than speaking to his own sister. So I hope you enjoyed these comparisons to Jehovah's Witnesses and those 3 syndromes, because I thought it was very interesting to match Jehovah's Witnesses with those. And thank you, by the way, to one of my French viewers that had asked me for a while to try to compare Jehovah's Witnesses with the Stockholm Syndrome. So I didn't know how to do this, and it came out this way. Anyhow, I have to do that in Spanish and in French now. But anyhow, I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, share the video, and I'll see you next time on my next video. Bye bye now.